You're not selected. NASA has chosen someone else. Just imagine hearing those words. I mean, for Peter Diamandis, this kid whose whole life basically was wrapped up in space, building rockets, reading every NASA manual cover to cover, dreaming of being an astronaut, that sentence, it wasn't just rejection, it was devastating, crushing. A life's dream built up over years of intense study, hard work, just gone in a moment. Now, most people, right, faced with that kind of knockout blow, they'd probably pivot, find a safer path. But this is where Peter Diamandis' story just takes this wild turn. Instead of letting that no define him, he built a multi-billion-dollar tech ecosystem, not just for himself, but to kind of reinvent the future for all of us. Space, health, education, the works.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. How does one sentence, one massive rejection, become the launch pad for a global movement? So our mission in this deep dive today is to really try and understand the story of Peter Diamandis. We want to get to the heart of how someone takes a really personal failure, a big one, and turns it into something huge.
Something that challenges governments, redesigns education, bets millions on extending human life. We're going to dig into 6 core principles, essentially, that helped Peter Diamandis reshape not just his own future, but maybe ours too.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, I think, is exactly that point. He didn't just recover from the rejection. He used it as a catalyst, really, to build something much, much bigger than his original dream, bigger than himself. And that makes you ask, doesn't it? What kind of foundational beliefs, what mindset allowed him to see that huge no from NASA, not as like a brick wall, but just a redirection, more than resilience. It's a fundamental shift in strategy. We're talking about a guy who's launched, over 20 companies in space, biotech, AI, longevity. It's incredible. So digging into his journey, I think we'll get a unique perspective, moving beyond just the success story to the actual philosophy underneath it all. #1. Financial mindset turning mission into capital.
Okay, let's dive into the first principle. And this one might actually surprise some people, especially if you're used to traditional business thinking. Peter Diamandis' financial mindset. For most of us, money's the goal, right? Security, lifestyle, whatever. But for Diamandis, nah, money was never the destination. He saw it, and he says this, as just fuel, a catalyst to accelerate bold ideas that could reshape the world. Think about that. Fuel, something you burn to get somewhere bigger. He had this really radical belief early on. If you're crazy enough to solve humanity's biggest problems, the money will follow. And not as a paycheck, he says, but as an ecosystem that grows with the impact. It's almost backwards to how most people think about wealth, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And to really get it, you kind of have to rewind to his background. Born in New York, Greek immigrant parents, and like you said, obsessed with space from day one. Building rockets, reading manuals, dreaming of being an astronaut. That drove everything. He goes to MIT, gets multiple degrees, then Harvard Medical School. I mean, the guy was building the perfect astronaut resume, right? And then the rejection from NASA. Despite all that effort, now for most people, that's game over for the dream. But instead of asking, why didn't they pick me, which is totally understandable, he asked a different question. How can I build something bigger than me? And if you connect that dot, that single mental pivot, it changed everything. He went from being this disappointed applicant to becoming an architect of a whole new way to innovate. He saw the problem wasn't him, maybe, but the system itself.
Right. And that exact pivot led straight to one of his most, audacious moves. 1996, the Ansari XPRIZE, a $10 million prize, okay? For the first private team to send a reusable spacecraft with people on board into suborbital flight. Twice. But here's the kicker, the part that still blows my mind. He announced it without having the $10 million.
That's money.
Yeah, sounds nuts, right? But he understood something about leverage. He used this thing called backed prize insurance. Basically, raised a fraction of money, insured the rest. A massive gamble. Sure. But it worked. Spectacularly. The competition was won in 2004 by Scaled Composites' Paul Allen's team, Microsoft co-founder, with Spaceship and But the real win, it cracked open the private space industry. That prize basically lit the fuse for SpaceX, for Blue Origin, for Virgin Galactic.
Exactly. He didn't build the rocket himself. He built the incentive, precisely. And that XPRIZE wasn't just a one-off trick. It became his core philosophy. Build companies not around profit, but around purpose, and let exponential technologies scale both. That's the key. Look at his portfolio now, those 20-plus companies. It's not random. It's all connected by that idea. You've got Singularity University, co-founded it, right? Trains leaders to think exponentially, to use AI, biotech for big challenges. Then Human Longevity, Inc., HLI. Using genomics, machine learning to, try and extend healthy human lifespan. Proactive health, not reactive.
Yeah, sequencing genomes, finding disease markers years early. It's amazing stuff.
Totally. And Cellularity Biotech, using placental cells for regenerative medicine. Pushing boundaries there. Fountain Life using AI, advanced diagnostics again, to catch diseases super early, shifting from treatment to prevention. And then there's Bold Capital Partners, his VC fund. Over $500 million, investing specifically in AI, longevity, robotics, all fitting that exponential purpose-driven model. So you see, it's not just a bunch of companies. It's a cohesive strategy. It all comes back to his core belief. If a problem affects a billion people, it's not just a challenge, it's a market. Solve it at scale using these powerful new technologies, and yeah, wealth follows. But it's a byproduct of the impact. And this makes you think, doesn't it? How many of us really look at big societal problems and think, market opportunity? His investment filter is crystal clear. Does this company move humanity forward? Does it solve something fundamental, energy, aging, education, disease at scale? That's the question. Pure profit isn't the first hurdle.
Exactly. And that's why it's so different. It's not about hoarding cash. It's about building platforms that survive him, legacies. He's famous for saying, philanthropy is nice, but if you want real change, build a business model that sustains it.
Sustainable impact.
Right. Charity helps, but a business built around solving a problem can keep solving it, potentially forever, scaling up. And that leads to maybe his most famous line, the best way to become a billionaire is to help a billion people. And it's not just like a motivational poster slogan. It's math, isn't it? Value times scale equals, well, potentially billions.
It really is a formula.
So it really makes you reconsider, doesn't it? How we think about wealth, impact, and the problems we choose to work on. Hashtag two. Career, strategy, breaking the rules to redesign the game.
Okay, so we've got this radical financial mindset money as fuel for mission. How does that translate into like his actual career? How did he build his life's work?
Well, surprise, surprise, he applies the same rule-breaking approach there too. Peter Diamandis was, as he puts it, never interested in coloring inside the lines. His career, if you can even call it that, it looks more like a rebellion than a resume. Look at his education again. MIT molecular biology and aerospace engineering at the same time.
Which is already intense.
Totally. Yeah. Then, while still at MIT, he enrolls in Harvard Medical School. I mean, on paper, the guy's overqualified for pretty much any job imaginable. But the thing is, he didn't want one.
Right, that's key.
He wasn't trying to fit in. He wanted to rewrite the whole system.
And that's a crucial difference, isn't it? The traditional path degrees, climb the ladder, wait for someone to say yes that felt too slow, too rigid for him. And that NASA rejection, it wasn't just disappointing. It confirmed something he suspected. The real future, the big leaps, they wouldn't come from bureaucracies. They'd come from insurgents, people willing to challenge things. So connecting that dot again, that shift from applying for missions to designing them, that's a huge lesson in agency, taking control.
Yeah, stop asking for permission, basically.
Exactly. He decided to build his own game.
And the first move in that new game, the XPRIZE, 1996. We talked about the money, but think about the sheer audacity of the idea. $10 million for a private spaceship, launched, like you said, with no funding and no backing at first.
Yeah.
He got the idea from history, right? The Orteig Prize for Lindbergh's flight across the Atlantic.
Incentive prizes.
He believed in them as blueprints for mobilizing global innovation. Set a clear, crazy goal, offer big prize, and let the world's smartest people go figure it out.
A fundamentally different model than government contracts.
Totally. And it worked. Over 24 teams jumped in. Skilled Composites won in 2004. But more than just the win, it proved private teams could do what only governments did before. It changed everything about space access.
The ripple effects were just massive. You mentioned SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic. Elon Musk has said XPRIZE was part of his inspiration. Bezos mentioned it early on. Virgin licensed the winning design. But what's really fascinating, strategically speaking, is that Peter didn't build the spaceship.
Right. He built the framework.
Exactly. He built the incentive structure that got hundreds of others to do it, unlocked huge amounts of private money and brain power. That's not just strategy, that's leverage. Massive leverage. Understanding how to enable others. And that became his playbook, his mantra. Don't fight the system, recode it. Don't lobby governments, outpace them. You see it again and again. Health, education, energy, AI. He looks for these broken systems, places where progress is stuck. Then, instead of trying to fix them from the inside, he launches an XPRIZE, an open competition. Let the best ideas win, wherever they come from.
Like the tricorder XPRIZE, trying to build that Star Trek medical scanner.
Exactly. Diagnose diseases better than doctors. with a handheld device.
Mm-hmm.
It's about designing a new game, not just playing the old one better.
So what kind of career strategy is that? You won't find it in any textbook. It's the kind that doesn't wait for the green light. It doesn't try to win the current game. It builds a whole new one. So what's the takeaway for you listening? In a world often obsessed with credentials and titles, Diamandis chose credibility through doing, through execution.
Yeah, results speak louder.
Right. In a system that rewards playing it safe, he bet on competition and audacious goals. Where the standard path is about safety, he chose speed, velocity, moonshots. Because maybe the best strategy isn't climbing the ladder someone else built. Maybe it's burning it down, metaphorically speaking, and building an elevator. Straight to the top. That's the Diamandis approach. #3. Success habits engineering the mind for optimism. All right, let's talk about mindset again, but more about the daily habits. If there's one defining trait for Diamandis, maybe even more than ambition or risk-taking, it's his evidence-based optimism. This isn't just wishful thinking, okay? He doesn't just believe the future will be better. He proves it every day with data. Think about your newsfeed. Mostly fear, anxiety, crisis, right?
Right, standard, yeah.
Well, Peter actively feeds his brain the opposite. Statistics showing progress, acceleration, abundance. It's like a deliberate mental conditioning, a choice to focus on what's working, what's possible.
And it's grounded in real numbers. Numbers most of us just don't hear about because, frankly, good news doesn't sell as well. He constantly points to examples. Child mortality. 12.6 million kids under 5 dying from preventable causes in 1990. Tragic. By 2020, down over 59%, according to UNICEF. That's millions of lives.
Incredible progress.
For extreme poverty. 1981, something like 44% of the world lived in extreme poverty. By 2023, under 9%, World Bank data. Think about the human flourishing that represents. And it's not just those two. Renewable energy costs plummeting, internet access exploding, literacy up, life expectancy way up. The data is there. The problem, as he sees it, is our brains aren't wired to easily see this. We have this negativity bias, right? A survival instinct, scan for
Like
threats.
saber-toothed tiger detector.
Exactly. Which worked fine back then. But now, with 247 news blasting negativity, that threat detector goes into overdrive. It distorts reality. So Peter's habit is to consciously, deliberately force himself to see the positive trends, the abundance, and then this is crucial, build based on that vision, not the fear. What's fascinating is it's not naive. It's militant optimism. He knows he has to fight that default negativity bias every single day.
And he literally engineers his day around it. He has a specific routine. Every morning, he reviews a curated list of positive signals, breakthroughs in science, tech, social progress. He calls it future conditioning, like an athlete warming up. He's warming up his mind to think exponentially, to see opportunity.
Priming the pump for possibility.
Exactly, and this shapes everything. When others see regulations, he sees white space for innovation. Aging populations, he sees trillion-dollar longevity markets. Panic about AI. He's building companies to collaborate with AI, seeing it as a partner. It's a totally different lens on reality.
And it's not just for show. It's his mental operating system. It dictates his actions, his investments, which really makes you ask yourself, doesn't it? How intentional are you about your information diet? Are you curating it or just letting the algorithm feed you? He has specific habits. That Moonshot Monday post he writes, forcing to find and articulate the big opportunity in the chaos. He surrounds himself with positive contrarians, people who challenge ideas, but to build them up, find better solutions.
Not just critics, but constructive challengers.
Right. And he actively avoids the doomsday media. Not ignorance, he knows the problems, but he believes solutions come from a problem-solving mindset, not fear. And maybe most interesting is his calendar. He designs it for thinking, protected thinking time every day, no interruptions, synthesizing hours every week, time to zoom out, reflect, connect the dots.
Treating mental clarity like a strategic asset.
Exactly. Like CEOs treat revenue, it's that important to his process.
Because for Peter, the biggest risk isn't failure. It's thinking too small. It's letting fear limit your vision. Most of us underestimate how much our daily inputs, news, social media, conversations shape how we see the world. He gets it. Perception shapes vision. Vision shapes strategy. So in a world drowning in noise and panic, he's trained himself to be a signal amplifier, to see what's possible way before it's obvious. And that's not luck, that's discipline. Daily, intentional discipline. #4. Life philosophy, don't wait for permission. Okay, this next principle might be the simplest, but maybe the hardest to actually live by. Peter Diamandis has this one core rule. If it matters, do it. Don't wait for permission. Simple, right? But think about it. It's not just a motto. It's like his personal law.
Mm.
And it came from frustration, right? Dealing with bureaucracy, slow institutions, seeing great ideas just die on the vine because someone was waiting for approval.
Absolutely. He learned early on that systems, academic, government, corporate, they're built for safety, stability, not speed. And if you want to actually change the world, especially with exponential tech involved, speed is critical. So while everyone else was waiting for NASA's okay, he sidestepped and created the XPRIZE. While others wrote grant proposals, he announced a $10 million prize with no money.
Just did it.
Just did it. While people tried to fix healthcare from inside the maze, he built Fountain Life and HLI to disrupt it from the outside. And what's interesting is this philosophy seems born from that pain, from being told no, from seeing gatekeepers slow things down.
Right.
But instead of getting bitter or fighting them head on, he just went around them, outpaced them.
Bypass the system.
Exactly. He doesn't waste time arguing. He builds alternatives because he believes ideas only have power when they're executed. And execution happens fastest when you stop asking for permission and just start.
Which is why he loves exponential technologies so much. AI, biotech, robotics, blockchain. Because these things, they don't wait for policy, they don't beg for approval, they simply move faster, cheaper, smarter, and reshape what's possible.
They just happen.
Yeah, they just happen. He sees them as revolutions disguised as code. They create new realities, whether the old guard likes it or not. They give individuals immense leverage.
And there's a deeper layer here, I think. It's not just about speed. It's about agency. It's the belief that you don't need to be a billionaire or a president or a certified genius to make a difference. What you need is a clear mission, the guts to act, and importantly, a tolerance for chaos. Because starting things is messy, and it really makes you ask, doesn't it? How often do we hold ourselves back waiting for that external okay, that validation?
Yeah, waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan.
Which never comes. He has that great quote, "The day before something is a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea." And that's when he starts building. When everyone else is saying impossible, he prototypes, gathers his tribe of equally restless optimists, and just gets going. His whole life is basically a case study in launching before you're ready, trusting that action creates momentum, and momentum attracts resources.
And yeah, let's be real, it's not always smooth sailing. It's messy. There have been failures, moonshots that missed, partnerships that fell apart. Of course, you try to build 20-plus companies in cutting-edge fields, some won't work.
Failure is part of the process if you're pushing boundaries.
Exactly. But for him, the cost of waiting, the cost of inaction is always higher than the cost of trying and maybe failing, because the future doesn't belong to the people who are perfectly prepared or have all the answers. It belongs to those who are early, who are willing to learn by doing, and who are just relentless. So what about those ideas you've been sitting on? Waiting for permission, Peter would say. Just start. Hashtag tag 5. Power thinking, redesigning the system instead of resisting it. All right, principle 5. This gets into how Diamandis actually wields influence, his power thinking process. And the core idea is this. He doesn't spend his time criticizing the world's broken systems. He designs alternatives. He doesn't fight the existing structure. He builds something new, something faster, leaner, and impossible to ignore. Something so good the old system has to adapt or just fade away. It's influence through creation, not critique.
The XPRIZE is the perfect example again. Remember, space exploration was stuck. Politics, budget cuts. He didn't lobby Congress harder. He reframed the problem entirely. Instead of asking government to innovate, he asked the crowd to compete. That $10 million prize leveraged over $100 million in private money. Proved competition could beat bureaucracy.
Yeah, unlocked innovation.
And what's key is this became his formula, not just for space. For education, health, energy, climate, everything. He turned his philosophy into a framework. Don't argue with inertia. Use incentives to ignite movement. He calls it leveraged philanthropy. Why give $10 million to one solution when you can design a prize that attracts hundreds of solutions, forcing people to build, not beg? It's genius, really.
Like the global learning XPRIZE you mentioned, that wasn't about space. It was about basic literacy. $15 million for open source software to teach kids reading and math without teachers.
Huge goal.
Huge, because over 250 million kids can't read or write. The need is massive. So instead of trying to fix broken school systems from within, which is incredibly hard, he challenged coders, dreamers, techies worldwide, out-innovate the system, build something better, faster, cheaper.
Creating a parallel track.
Exactly. And it's not just clever, it's scalable. That software could potentially reach millions, billions who have no access now. That's where his real power lies, creating these scalable, disruptive alternatives.
And this shows where his influence comes from. It's not formal authority, it's not loudness, it's in how clearly he frames problems. and how precisely he aligns the incentives so that innovation becomes inevitable, whether it's longevity, AI, Mars. The pattern is frame the problem, open the competition, let brilliance rise. He
He makes
orchestrates.
the stage for innovation.
Precisely. He understands something crucial. Real influence isn't about command and control. It's about orchestration, aligning the money, the talent, the vision, the urgency around one big, compelling challenge. So the question for you listening is, where can you apply that orchestration mindset? In your team, your company, your community, how can you enable others to solve problems around you? Because ultimately, he's not just a founder, he's a movement builder. And movements grow not by winning arguments, but by shifting behavior. Thousands, millions of people, turning hesitation into action, fear into invention, seeing the status quo not as a wall, but as a launch pad.
He's not asking, how do I win the current game? He's asking, what kind of system makes this problem obsolete, and how fast can I build that? That's the core of his power thinking. Real influence isn't about going viral for a day. It's about going structural, building new realities that make the old ones irrelevant. Hashtag 6. Crisis strategy, playing the long game when the world panics. Okay, last principle, and maybe the most relevant right now given, well, everything. Crisis strategy. Most people freeze in a crisis, right? Fear, uncertainty, understandable. Diamandis, he accelerates, not recklessly, but deliberately, guided by this deep belief that chaos is where the best opportunities hide. He sees signal in the noise when everyone else just sees chaos.
We saw it clearly during COVID, markets crashing, fear everywhere. Did he pull back? Nope. He doubled down on healthcare technology. He saw the pandemic wasn't just a disaster, it was an accelerator. It exposed weaknesses in reactive healthcare.
So he leaned into proactive health.
Exactly. Expanded fountain life, predictive diagnostics. Invested more in longevity, regenerative medicine, AI health platforms. It wasn't a random reaction. It was accelerating his existing roadmap because the crisis proved its necessity. Because he knows every crisis reveals the fault lines in old systems, and every fault line is a blueprint for innovation. It shows you exactly where to build next.
And this comes from his ability to zoom out when others are trapped in the now. He calls it exponential perspective, thinking 10 years ahead while everyone else is stuck in the 10-day panic cycle. While we're all watching daily stock tickers and quarterly reports, he's studying the deep, long-curve megatrends.
AI, symbiote, genomics, quantum.
Right, the tectonic shifts, not the ripples, the actual waves changing the landscape over decades. He focuses on the long signal, not the short noise.
So his secret, it sounds simple, but it's hard to do. He doesn't make decisions based on fear. He makes them based on trajectory. When things break, his question isn't just what happened, it's what comes next and how do I help build it before it's obvious.
Always looking ahead.
Anticipating. Exactly. That's why he created Abundance 360. It's not just a conference, it's a training ground, a lab for long game thinkers, training people to think 10x, 100x, not just 10%. People who get that thriving in the future isn't about perfect prediction. It's about preparing faster, building more proactively than anyone else. Which makes you ask, right? What mega trends are you preparing for? Are your decisions driven by today's fear or tomorrow's trajectory?
This really is his deepest conviction, I think. The future belongs to those who bet boldly when things are uncertain, those who keep building when everyone else is hiding or waiting it out. It's why he plays offense, even when things seem to be collapsing. He sees downturns not as endings, but as resets, opportunities to leapfrog.
A chance to shed the old and build the new.
Right, so when the world panics, Peter Diamandis gets to work. Quietly, steadily, eyes on the next decade. Because in any crisis, there are two kinds of players, aren't there? Those protecting what they have, clinging to the past, and those building what the future will need. Peter has clearly made his choice. Hashtag outro. So let's bring this all home, back to that rejection. Peter Diamandis wasn't chosen. Not by NASA, not by the government, not by the institutions he admired, and yet, crucially, he didn't wait to be chosen. He chose himself. And that single decision, it changed everything for him. And through him, maybe for millions of others, he didn't get to be an astronaut. He became something arguably more powerful, a force that launched missions, opened doors, created industries for others.
Yeah, he didn't fight the old world. He just built new ones, made the old ones less relevant. And what's fascinating really is how he kind of redefined visionary for our time. It's not just about seeing the future, it's about actively building it brick by exponential brick. You see in XPRIZE, Singularity U, HLI, Bold Capital, all these ventures are about constructing that better future. And the lesson here, it's not really about tech or being a genius or having connections or being rich initially.
Yeah.
It's simpler and maybe harder. It's this. Your greatest power is deciding to act without permission. Because the world won't always give you a green light. It'll delay you. ignore you, dismiss your crazy ideas.
Often, yeah.
But if you stay laser focused on the mission, not your ego, not your resume, but the problem you need to solve, you won't need applause. You'll need momentum. And that's what Peter built. A life spent accelerating change, not waiting for it. So, what does this all mean for you? Ask yourself this. If no one ever gave you the green light, would you build your own launchpad anyway? If Peter Diamandis' story resonated with you, maybe that little spark of frustration you feel, that urge to build something, create something, go beyond what's expected. Don't ignore that feeling. You don't need permission to dream bigger. You don't need fancy credentials to solve a problem that matters to you.
You just need the mission.
Exactly. You just need a mission worth failing for. And the courage to start before you feel totally ready. Because the future doesn't need more spectators watching things happen. It needs builders. And if that's you,
Well,
welcome.